welcome to a workshop GAMGA here, and we're very privileged again to have an expert lady telling us about things. Lots of experience, lots of talent, and Virginia, let it go right now. Virginia Tunnel from San Diego. Thank you.
I want to say it's actually my honor and my privilege to be doing this, that I've been asked 2 years in a row to do this. You have no idea how much that
we can try to.
it really does. What we're going to talk about a lot today is different aspects of choreography in regards to choreography. I'm going to be talking about solos,
No, I'm ending it right now. I'm not going to be
small
here,
groups,
but
and
I'm
we're
just
trying to get
thinking
to
we
larger
want it on the
groups.
screen actually, right?
Touch a little bit on
The screens are not
skits.
hooked up.
Okay, so as I'm going along, I'm hoping also at the end to be able to do a little bit of question and answer. But if you do have a question when I'm saying something, you know, who knows where this is going to lead. Let's just kind of go with it as it goes. Okay? So what I am going to start with is the most difficult choreography you will do, and that is for a soloist. The reason it makes sense that it would be the most difficult because that's the most difficult dancing that anyone has to do. There's no place to hide when you are a soloist. That floor is yours, and every eye in this room. If you look at all these tables, look how many chairs are out here. All these eyes are on that soloist. If you're the choreographer for that soloist, all those eyes are on you as well. Okay? I suggest, I feel very strongly about this, that for a Funkenmariechen or a soloist, they should be able to do a large majority of their own choreography. They can get help, but they should be able to do most of it on their own. Because the dancer has to feel comfortable in the movement that they do. And when somebody choreographs for a soloist like that, they don't necessarily feel comfortable in the movement, and it can tend to look a little robotic. I'm going to take a step back, and I'm going to ask you guys, well, let's start with this. First of all, again, the Funkenmariechen should be the best dancer that your club has on. You really should be the best. And there's a reason. I believe that the Funkenmariechen position was created because of that you had a line of girls, and one just kind of always stuck out. And it was just like, well, God, she sticks out, but we don't want to tell her not to do what she's doing because she's so good, so let's go ahead and pull her out of the line and let her do a solo on her own. Because if you think about the Funkenmariechen in the court, it doesn't quite seem to fit in what would the Funkenmariechen be in a regular court. There's really no position, so she is. That's kind of my philosophy or theory of where she came from. So she really needs to be the best dancer that you have to put out on the floor. So now I'm going to ask you guys a question. What do you want to see your Funkenmariechen do? What do you expect from her? Anybody have any ideas?
Same thing you do.
Thank you. What, Christy?
Engage the audience.
Engage the audience. Let's say, now, I'm talking about movement. What kind of movement do you want to see?
From response, especially the large audience here at GAMGA, the biggest response you always got was when you did your floor. Whether it be splits, whether it be cartwheels, combinations, or anything like that.
He's got two of them.
Tap dancing?
Tap dancing's cool.
High kicks.
You got them. There are all three of them. There are all
We
three of
love
them.
high kicks.
Splits, cartwheels, high kicks. Those are all three things that are expected of a Funkenmariechen. And I'm going to say this way. A Funkenmariechen must, there are enough musts there, be able to do a full and complete split, a very good cartwheel, and very high kicks. If you have a club, and in your club, you don't have someone who can do that, does that mean you don't have a Funkenmariechen? No, it doesn't. But it means you want to keep your Funkenmariechen for what I call internal consumption only. Meaning, you want to keep her in the club, go into your own, into the visiting clubs that you do, but do me a favor and do her a favor, don't post her dancing on YouTube. Because YouTube can be pretty mean. You can see some pretty mean responses from people when they're watching performances and they say, oh God, she can't even do a decent split. This is no Funkenmariechen. I've read those comments on YouTube. I think it's very painful and hurtful to the performer. And I'm very protective of performers, because we can all get messed up out there, and I just don't want to see performers getting hurt that way. So if you have a folk invitation that doesn't quite have all these things, but you're happy with her, use her, okay? Have her out there, but try to keep her from getting into things that you do. When trying to keep my mind on certain things, I can kind of go all over the place. When you're dealing with picking a folk invitation, I've always described the folk invitation in three kind of people. You've got a cheerleader, you've got a rockette, and you've got a saloon girl. All three of these personalities should be in equal parts within the folk invitation. The cheerleader is pretty obvious. She has to be high energy. She has to be very peppy and happy, and she has to be able to go out and really move through the dance. Your rockette is your technician. She's got to be a good dancer. That's where the dancers, the high kicks come from. She's got to have that ability to. And what I would tell anybody who would come up to me and say, I'd like to be a folk invitation, I would ask, have you gone to take dance classes? If you haven't taken dance classes, get into dance. You shouldn't be putting to somebody out there who's never danced. Okay? Don't do that. And the last part of this is the saloon girl. Gotta remember, this is carnival, right? This is a little on the risque side, right? She's also gotta be a little naughty. Okay? She's gotta be a little,
Just a little hint.
exactly. The naughty girl is the one who engages the audience. That is where your stage presence comes from. That is the one when you come out, and I mean, she's on the floor, she has very short time on the floor to truly engage her audience. Very short time. I mean, they really can quickly lose you, you know. But that little naughty girl, the one who can wink at a guy and flip her skirt up at a guy and look at her shoulder and blow a kiss, that's the saloon girl. That is your stage presence. That is the chemistry that happens between the audience. She's the one who's attainable. Cheerleader isn't necessarily attainable. Rockette definitely is not attainable. But the saloon girl is attainable to everybody in the audience. She's the one who reaches out, touches the audience, and grabs them in. So when you're sitting down and you're looking at your club and you're saying, okay, we're going to have tryouts for folk invitation, kind of set those things out. Look for those three people within the girl. Try to find the one that kind of gets the most mix of all of them. You have to have a good stage presence, there's no doubt. If you're going to do a audition for a show, and I've seen this a lot of times, that you're going to say, how am I going to pick the person I'm going to put in this show? You got this one girl, God, she's a great dancer, but she got no personality, right? And then you have this other girl on the other side, and you say, well, she's got all the personality in the world, but she's not the best dancer. Which one can you work with the best? You take the one that you can feel, okay, she can learn a little bit better dance. She can get there. This one, maybe we can work on her personality, bringing it out on the floor. She may be a cute person, but it doesn't come out on the floor. So you need that good mix of all of those people to get a good performance. And I think that's a really important part to start, is that you start with a good person to go on the platform. No place to hide. She's got to be able to think on her feet. There have been, I don't know how many times that something has happened to me on that floor, and I've had to change my routine. I think somebody remembers here, my Spielmann Zoom friends, remember one of the first times I was out here, my music stopped. And it stopped twice. And it stopped 3 times. My music stopped 3 times. I started the dance 3 times. The last time I said, forget it. And I danced through without music, and that whole audience was clapping. And I used the clapping of the audience to finish my dance. This you have to be able to do. You have to be able to work through disaster. So you need to make sure that that girl is capable of doing that as well. Any questions so far as to what I've given you? Any?
Questions, who picks the Funkenmariechen?
That depends upon your club. Okay. Within our club, the San Diego club, it is the entire membership of the Carnival Gesellschaft. In some groups, it is done by the board. Other groups will do it by the Prinzengarde will do the vote. I kind of like the idea of the entire body because it takes it out of the personal relationship area. And like I said, remember the first thing was what? She has to be the best dancer you have. She is your front person. She's the first person that everybody sees in your club. And she sets the tone of what your performance is. She sets the tone for the Tanzpaar. She sets the tone for the Prinzengarde. If your Funkenmariechen does not have that strength to be able to go, it's a lot of strength to have to carry. It all goes downhill. So it is up to your club how you do it. But I think the more people involved in the voting process, the less political it becomes, and the more you're going to get people saying, this is the best dancer we have. This is the one we want to step forward. Anybody else have anything to say? Okay. So now let's talk about how we just said we need splits, we need cartwheels, and we need high kicks. So already we've gotten some choreography done. Now we know it absolutely is routine. We know it absolutely. So now what you want to do is deal with how long the routine is. That again depends on the strength of your dancer. This is a really important part. If you have a less strong or capable Funkenmariechen, shorten the time. 2 minutes. She needs to be able to carry off the entire time she's on that floor without going through repetitive motion. If she's repeating things, that means she doesn't have any place else to go. So you shorten the time. You can use going in and coming off the floor in that 2-minute time. If she's a little bit better, maybe you give her different music to get on, maybe you give her a little bit different music to get off. But the less capable, the shorter. Even a very good, very experienced and talented Funkenmariechen, I wouldn't go more than 4 minutes. Because you don't want to lose the audience. We always want them to go, I wish she would have stayed out there a little bit longer. If they're going, okay, what's next? You've lost them, and you lost everything that you set up. She might have been doing a great job out there, but you lost it. You threw it away because you went too long. Leave them wanting more, have them wanting to know, can you go do that again? Let me see you do that again. So you have feeling you. You're looking back between 2 minutes to 4 minutes. If it goes a little over 4 minutes, as long as you can carry it off, sit and watch her routine and do it with a critical eye. Are you getting it? If she's losing your interest, she's going to lose your audience interest. Someone needs to do that. And she needs to be able to do that too. Be critical with herself and say, going a little wrong. With this computer age today, my husband has gotten wonderful at this. He can edit any piece. We have pulled pieces out of, parts right out of the middle of a piece of music where all of a sudden it gets really slow and it's like, oh, we don't want that in there. He'll just suck that right out, blend them together, and we go on. We do the same thing with editing the beginning or the end of the piece. Find where you find where it seems like, okay, right there is a good end, and then you can find someone in your club who's good with computers who can do the editing and edit it down so you get to that for 2 to 4 minutes. He's taken for me, I've taken and had him loop things where I said, oh, I don't want this part of the music. I want it to start back right about here, and so he'll take this whole section, throw it back on the end, and there it loops, and so I can get the length of time that I want. Music does not have to stop, remember that. When your Funkenmariechen comes to her, ta-da, she's doing solidity, she's doing bowing, and all of this can be done with the music. You can let the music run. She marches off. Doesn't have to stop. You can use that music to get her off. So now we've already got quite a bit going, right? Splits. A lot of Funkenmariechen end in splits. I think most of them do. They're either going to end up in a split, they're going to end up on a knee. Very rarely do they just end like this, right? So there you kind of get an ending already. She doesn't have to stop there. She can finish in her splits, turn around, come up, a bunch of different things. But it kind of is where they turn to. That's the big move, that split. And everybody wants to see it. So that gives you a little bit more in regards to helping you choreograph. Kind of steps she does. Anything and everything. I don't care if she's out here doing Roger Rabbit, okay? If she's doing moonwalk, if she's doing polka, if she's doing any type of folk dancing, if she's doing jazz, if she even does a little hip hop, you know, if it fits, do it, you know, if it fits her personality. Because remember, if she does hip hop, that's the saloon girl. That's very engaging. It may not be the kind of movement that you think traditionally for Funkenmariechen, but traditionally the Funkenmariechen has to have more freedom. So all of those things are very, very open. I do like YouTube because YouTube does show us things that are happening in Europe. Go and go into YouTube and put in Funkenmariechen, put in Prinzengarde, and they will bring up all sorts of sites, and you can see what they're doing in Europe. If you want to pull some of that type of stuff in, giving you a heads up, I do that, and I see that they're almost doing what we used to do in aerobic class.
Yes.
Their routines are extraordinarily aerobic. It's just a lot of jumping apart and a lot of. They don't march anywhere. I never seen them march anywhere. They are kicking and moving. They're doing lots of jazz. They do our music. They don't do German music, they're doing American music. Of course, for us here, we look at it and go, well, you know what, we can hear American music anytime. I'd like to hear some German music. And what's nice is there are now groups in Germany that are taking some old music and making new music that is much more current to our time. It makes it very, very nice to be able to use it. I had it pointed out to me on the way here on the bus, my very close friend, that you might want to listen to a little bit of what the music, what the words are saying, because sometimes those words are saying a little bit something that, you know, if your children can understand. If you're going to have that be, you were listening to one song that was talking about, what was it?
Last night, AC/DC.
Was, I don't,
20 centimeters.
20 centimeter, yeah. You know, okay. But it is never, it's carnival. This is carnival. It's supposed to be. That's why that just is there. So, but you might want to just think about it. I worked with a group of kids, and we did a dance to Wild Wild West. And one of the words in one sentence was gimme, gimme, safe sex. Yes, I was doing this with 5-year-old kids. I'm going, no. And it was my boss at the time, because I was working for a different studio, and she's the one who picked this music. And I said, no. So I went and edited it out. The rest of the song was okay, but you too want to hear that, especially if you're doing with Kinder Karneval. There's some cute music out there, but do you want to do 20 centimeter with Kinder Karneval? No. So really, if you don't speak German and you don't know, take the music to somebody else, have somebody else listen to it, who does know how, listen to what those words are, make sure you know, and it is appropriate for the person who is performing. Because one of the things we are doing here is we're also talking about for kinder, right? Because this is not just for the adult Prinzengarde, adult Funkenmariechen, this is also for kinder. That's where we get that adult Funkenmariechen eventually is from that child who does. So, and their movement may be a little bit different. I mean, they still have to have all those little parts. They don't want to be as naughty. They might want to be a little mischievous than naughty, but she has to have those parts as well. So, all that kind of movement is available to us. Any type of dance movement, and it may not even be dance movement, but maybe it's a little bit of play acting. You know? I go up to people, I take a guy's glasses off, and rub it on my buns. Okay, that's not dancing, but it's a little play acting and connecting with the audience, right? So that's all acceptable.
It's just that fun thing. It's just that the hint you
Right,
give
it's a
teasing.
tease. Exactly.
It's not anything else.
It is not. It's not
Yeah.
rock.
And
I
if
will
you
show
show,
that.
if you show your little panty, which you have a very cute panty on with little ruffles and
Are
all
you ready?
that.
Yeah, we're good.
That is just
Monica is making a very, very good point, and I was going to talk about this too as
people
Part of-
misunderstand. that.
part of the places that I even believe you can get movement, and this goes into the saloon girl, is strippers. Believe it or not, okay? Couple terms. There's one that's called a bump and a grind. Okay? A bump and a grind. There's your grind. There's the bump. That's a stripper. Prinzengarde or Funkenmariechen can do it this way and that. It's still the same thing. It looks very different. I would not do the stripper's version, that not. But bump and grind is part of dance. Another one is called a shimmy. There's your stripper. There's a Funkenmariechen. So don't say, can't do that movement because it's unacceptable. No, it's not unacceptable. It may be just the way that it's being performed, and if you think something is going too far, then make sure you tell them, yes. I also believe one of the things I'm very strong on is that the Funkenmariechen's uniform needs to be acceptable for what she's doing. When a Funkenmariechen does a cartwheel, she should never show skin. Underneath her skirt, you should never see skin. That's going too far. Should have, if she's wearing the separate pieces, be a full leotard. So when she flips over, there is no skin. You don't see back here anything. You don't see here anything. There's no chance to see anything. That's all part of it. That's what Monica is hinting at. It is that goes one step too far when you're showing that. It is touching and teasing and hinting at it without actually the performance thereof. Okay? Let me see here. Does anybody have any questions or any other thing that they want to say about in regards to Funkenmariechen at this point? Because I think we're just about covered what I want to cover with Funkenmariechen. I'm hoping I'm giving you a basis on where to start, where you can look for a movement, the kind of music you want to use. You want to use anything that is energetic and peppy. Make sure it is within her ability, that she can carry off the time frame that she's out there. She cannot get tired on it. She cannot show that she's tired. She has to be able to carry off that entire time frame. So if she's out there for 2 minutes, she needs to be able to be at the end of that 2 minutes with the same energy level that she started at. If she's there for 4 minutes, she better be able to hold that. That's a lot of time for us. A gymnastics routine is 2 minutes long. And look at the kind of energy that those girls put into a tumbling routine. 2 minutes is what is the max. So she needs to carry on. Okay, now I'm going to go to the next most difficult choreography and the next most difficult performance. And that is duos, Tanzpaar. And I want to make a very strong distinction here in between a duo and Tanzpaar. A duo can be 2 men, it can be 2 women, and it can be a man and a woman. Tanzpaar, it's always got to be a man and a woman, right? The other part of it is this to think about, is that a duo, if one of the members of a duo is sick and cannot perform, for whatever reason cannot perform, the other member can still pretty much go out and do their routine. They're doing the same thing at the same time. Sometimes they may be doing a few different things. Maybe you stand for a moment while the other person performs and you perform. They may need to make a few adjustments in that performance, but they can go on by themselves. A Tanzpaar cannot. A Tanzpaar is a unit. You can't dance without your other half. So you need to remember that as when you're doing your choreography for a Tanzpaar, they have to be a unit. They are a team. Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers. Okay? You can have moments within the performance where you're dancing separate, but you need to remember you have that unit. You also don't have much place to hide because there's only 2 of you out here, but you do have a little bit of room now to wiggle because maybe one person's a little bit better at this and the other one's a little weaker, so we can hide the little weaker one behind what the other one can do. You get that opportunity. It's a little more anonymity on the floor because of the fact that there are 2 of you out there. And that is a good place to start, by the way. When you're starting with your Tanzpaar, yes, the first thing you got to be critical. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? Really important place to start. You have 2 people out there. Can you both do high kicks? Oh God, if not both can do high kicks, well, we can do a lot of kicking. Do we have somebody who maybe not be able to kick that high? Okay, so that when we're together, we're not going to kick so high, but we want to make sure that, oh wow, she can kick really high. So we're going to let her kick, and he's not going to kick at this point. We're going to make sure she's kicking and he's not. So we get those high kicks out there too, right? You want to use them. Guy might be able to do tumbling. She can't tumble. Let him tumble. She can do something else, right? That's okay. You can dance apart from each other and should use those things to do that. But not only do you have to now have, as a Tanzpaar, you have to have your stage presence and be able to dance. And you have to have attachment to the audience. There has to be something else. It's called chemistry between the two partners. That chemistry is really important. That's what makes the difference between you being a duo and being a par. Everyone wants to see you as a par. That means you have to like each other. Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers were not the best of friends. They danced in a lot of movies together and everybody loved them to dance. But they weren't the best of friends. But when they went on the dance floor, you would never have guessed it. You would have thought for sure they were in love. Because that's where it's important. That chemistry has to develop on the dance floor. And the only place where that chemistry develops is in hold. That when you are here holding each other, you're looking at each other, you're smiling at each other, that there is an honest give between the two of you. That everybody, when they're watching you dance, they go, oh God, those two really like each other. So that's another addition into being the dancer, is you have to now have this chemistry with the person that you are dancing with. Also want to remember, we do a lot of this now, where we are recording things. Well, when you're recording things, you want to think about how far apart you get from your partner. It's really important. You really don't want to have one person over here and the other person over there, because that's kind of like, what is it, the magnet, right? When they draw together, right? Mouth return, and they go, right? Well, you can't develop chemistry if you're dancing away from each other. You shouldn't be too far away. You can dance away from each other, but you should be pretty much close enough that you can reach out and maybe we would take a step and be within each other. Tanzpaar is dancing in home. It is dancing in home. Polka. Quick step. Charleston. These are the steps you want to swing. These are the steps you want to be using to do a Tanzpaar. Those are all the things that, and what's neat is because since this is called Tanzpaar, it doesn't have a name like tango, which has particular steps that have to be done to it. It's Tanzpaar. You can steal from all and do. Steal from everywhere you can. These are high energy dances, and they give you that opportunity to make your dance look interesting. You're here doing a swing, and then all of a sudden, now you're doing a bit of Charleston, right? It makes it interesting, and you can do Charleston this way. You don't have to be standing next to each other. You can do the ta-das. Those all work. But this is what makes this dance really work. Now, I asked you what we wanted to see the Funkenmariechen. What do we want to see in the Tanzpaar? Anybody have any ideas?
Try to kick at the same height.
Exactly.
Good one.
Be at the same timing.
Imaging.
Yes.
Your image.
Sure. Very
Your
important.
image, yeah.
How about
Lifting
lifts?
is very important. Don't lift if you cannot do it.
Thank you. Here's where we were going. That's where I was going. I was going to say it slightly differently. I was going to say, do not do what you cannot do well.
Exactly. Just as something else.
Okay? Lifts are, I'm sorry, the bread and butter of being a Tanzpaar. We have to have lifts. In a perfect world, you have a nice, strong male dancer and a teeny weeny tiny tiny little girl who you can just pick up with one hand and now there she is.
Like a feather.
That we don't live in a perfect world, right? You don't live in a perfect world. So you may have dancers that are about the same size, maybe the female's a little bit heavier, maybe the guy isn't quite as strong, whatever it is. So, being able to muscle that girl up and set her up on your shoulder and go, ta-da, that may not happen, and that's okay. But there are lots of lifts that can be done that do not require the man to be Herculean. You want to use momentum. When you're dancing in whole, momentum develops as you're spinning. And as you're spinning and that momentum is there, that's the easiest time to lift anybody. All she has to do is jump up. She's already going. And then all you're doing is using the momentum, and there she goes flying, right? That's what you want to do. There are lifts that not even using the momentum, but simply all you have to do is stand up. Grab her around the waist and you're standing up, and boy, there she is. She's on your hip, right? It doesn't require a lot of waist if you stand her up on your hip. She's shorter than you. Now the weight is on your leg, not on your arm. These are the things you want to use. You want to think about that. As a gymnast, we have guys spotting us all the time. And when you're starting to learn a move, I've taken kids, and I'll take a guy, say, okay, I'm going to teach you how to do a handstand. I'm going to tell them, okay, you like this, right? And I take them around the waist and I flip them right over. I'm a little person, but I can still take a person and knowing how to lift a person, get them up on my shoulder, even a person who's bigger than me. Timing. Knowing how and timing. So lifting needs to be practiced. When you're going to lift somebody, you need to make sure that you're getting down, so you're using your legs, and your timing, so that when that person is jumping, that you are starting your lift when that person is jumping, using their momentum to help with the lift. You cannot lift someone here. You're just using your arms. You want to get underneath them and bring them up. A couple of years back, my daughter and son-in-law actually did a Tanzpaar. And I couldn't get my son-in-law to get that timing. He would try to lift her from here. I would lift my daughter, and I'd get her up here. He would lift her, she'd be here. Okay, because that's how important it is. Do it in a pool. You guys can want to practice on lifts, get into a swimming pool so that you can feel the timing on it. Practice it over and over and over again to get the timing on a lift. It's extremely important. Do lifts. Look around, there are lots of lifts. I mean, put your leg out, she can sit on your leg. Just put both knees on your leg. She's lifted. Now if you want to get her down, you're going to just kind of lift her. There's a little lift. It doesn't take much, but it works. You lose more by doing a lift you can't do well. You lose more because all you're doing is just showing everybody, I can't do this. So make sure that you are doing that, using good lift. Finishing, lots of ways to finish. Kissing is allowed. That's a perk for the guys, huh?
Yeah.
It's a big perk for the
Nice
guys.
way to finish.
You get to kiss the girl. Big perk. Those are nice because those are the chemistry. That is the chemistry. Lots of other ways to end. You could end with her over your knee, ta-da. You could end up with her on the ground next to him. You could end up with her if she's light, up on the shoulder. These are lots of good ta-das. You want to have a ta-da. You also want to do something that makes you stand out from every other one possible. Lifting is important, but maybe there's something else you guys can do that makes you look different from any other. And this goes for the Funkenmariechen as well. Things that make you unique to what you're doing. Don't try to be just like everybody else. Be different. Take a risk. Maybe it might pay off, maybe it won't. Maybe one year you come up with a dance and you go back and you say, no, take a risk. Make yourself unique to everybody else. Anybody have any questions so far on the Tanzpaar? It's a lot of fun. I love seeing Tanzpaars. That's the one we all want to be. We all want to be up there and going, God, isn't that neat? The way they dance together. Yeah.
I would say also with the Tanzpaar that musical selection as far as the medley, as far as different styles
Yes,
of
you're
dance
exactly
in
right.
a piece.
This, by the way, is my husband. He
It's just rubbed off.
He's watched so many of these programs that he does realize, and yes, he's right. Even with the Funkenmariechen medley, in Tanzpaar, what's neat with having a medley is you have different tempos. So now you can go into different dance steps. Exactly. You can do a waltz. There's no reason why for a few moments that you can't, or tango. Look, talk about one of the most dramatic dances there is the tango. Right? And you get that, talk about where you get the chemistry. When your faces are close together and you are just very dramatic. So yes, believe me, having a medley is an awesome, awesome way to make your dance unique, very unique. And definitely you want to think how you're getting on the floor. How do you get on the floor? Do you want to just the two of you march out? Do you want to have one person on the floor? That's always a good one. You can have the girl on the floor by herself, or the guy on the floor by himself, doing something first, and the other one comes out. You do always want them to end together, and you want them going together, not separate. Because remember, they're a par. You want them as a par. You cover the floor as a unit, and you want to remain that way. Once you're together, you want the guy to end up with the girl. You can have a story, boy meets girl. You can have a fight. What do you mean flipping up my skirt? You know? But you want them to end up together. You want the guy to win. Okay? So I'm hoping I'm helping you out with that because I'd like to see more Tanzpaars. I really do. I think they're very, very fun to watch. Okay, so next, let's go on to small groups. Now we've added some more people on. We're getting a little more anonymity, so it's a little bit more to hide. Small groups, you're talking about 3 girls in a garter, 4 girls in a garter, 5 girls in a garter. And you're thinking, well, gosh, we have formation. Really hard to do a circle with 2 people or 3 people, right? So you're not going to be able to rely on formations. But when God closes a window, he opens a door. There are other things that you can do. Because of the fact that there's a little more anonymity, but still a little bit of a contact available for each of these girls, you can still engage the audience in a way that a big group can't. A big group, there is a whole lot of anonymity there. You're not connecting with really any one person on that. But with a small group, you can. So you can take your people and break them up and bring each one individually toward the forefront, giving them each the ability, what can you do? Oh, you can turn well, so I'm going to let you do turns. God, you're a kicker, so we're going to put you up front when it comes time to do some kicks. And here's a tumbler. We're going to let her tumble. So you're still doing kind of the same things. You're still using everybody in there, but you can use their talents to a way that you can't when you get to a bigger group. You know, not everybody can do a cartwheel in a big group, and doing cartwheels in a big group might be a little dangerous because you kick each other, but you can do cartwheels with a small group. You can do, if they have and their ability. There's no doubt, but we always have to start off because of the ability of the dancer. And that's the reason why not everybody has to do all the same things all the time. So remember that. You can break it up. I have always liked within the group to give everybody, even with our bigger groups, give them all a moment where you're center stage. I would like to see every single dancer get that opportunity to be forward, almost like the Mickey Mouse Club. Virginia, I'm Christy, hi. You know, give them all that moment where they get to, they all work very, very hard, and we want to give them all that little moment. It's very hard to do with the big group, a lot easier to do with the smaller group, so that's something to be aware of. They can do a lot of things. They can still do pinwheels. They can still do some of the, they've got the kicks, they can do kick lines. When they do pinwheels and the formations, spread out. Do not be a little group. If you're doing a pinwheel and you've got 3 girls, don't go shoulder to shoulder, right? They're going to be farther apart. Yes. Pinwheel is that big line, and they march in their turn, all the way around like that. That's a pinwheel. That is actually one of the staples of a garter, is the pinwheel. And you'll see it done in a number of ways. They'll break them into 4 points. And they'll do the straight ones. You can do them, everybody facing the same direction. You have them, half the people facing another direction. Bigger when you get bigger. But they are a staple, is to turn around to march turning. With a small group, boy, they can do kicks. They could do kicks and they could do turns. They can do a lot more. With the big group, it's hard to do some of those extra little things in a pinwheel. It's bad enough trying to keep them in a straight line. But when you've got 3 girls and they're doing a pinwheel, so they can do a 1, 2, 3, 4, and we can kick. And then we can maybe do a turn. And now we're still in the line. Boy, that looks impressive to see those girls be able to stay in the line as they're turning, as they're doing other steps. So you can still use that pinwheel. And like I said, is you spread them out. If you have 3 girls, you put 1 up front and 2 in the back. Okay? But this can change. So now they put the one on this end forward and have a different line. You change the line this line. So you don't have the kind of formations where you can go into a circle and do a grand right and left. But you do have the opportunity to do some formation. You have an audience over here, you have an audience over here. Most of us dance on a dance floor. We do not dance on a stage. You don't want to neglect these guys. You have 3 girls. One can face that way for a while, one can face for that way for a while. And then you've got one, and you can move them around so everybody gets a chance to be in that front and center position. Lots of things that you can do with 3 girls or 4 girls you cannot do with a large group. So don't say, darn, we don't have 12 girls in our group. We only have 3. No, say, great, we have 3. Boy, what can we do with 3 girls? And we can do a lot. Okay?
5 is still a small group.
5, I would consider 5 still a small group. Even if you have 5, I would not want to do anything shoulder to shoulder. I would always want to have it at least good arm's length, maybe 2 arms lengths away from each other, so that you're taking to the floor. You never want to be, if you put them together real close, then they're just in the center of the floor. They look like this tiny little group. And you want them to look like impressive. Right up. They can be very impressive.
Would be easier with 7.
I personally like even numbers.
Yeah, but you're 7.
You're 7? Okay, but not a problem. Not a problem with an uneven number. The reason why I say I personally prefer symmetry. You're talking symmetry. If we're going to do a pinwheel over here and a pinwheel over here, and we have 4 girls, right? You got 2 girls going around. So now if you have a pinwheel and you're going to do a pinwheel, and you have 7. You have 3 and 4.
Right.
It's doing good. You don't have to have that 4th person. The center person does not have to join the pinwheels. They could be doing something on their own.
Just
Yeah, you just have the pinwheels going around, and that center person does something else. Not everybody has to do everything at the same time when you're dancing in a group. That's really a big one to get into your head. You can, let's say you have a group of girls that are really great kickers, but you also have some that can't quite get their legs up there. But you want to take this group of girls and you want to show them off. So we have a group of 8, and we have 4 girls that are great kickers, and 4 that are just not so great. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to bring those 4 girls up, and we're going to let them do the kick part. And we're going to let them kick. Very impressive for everybody in the audience is going to love it, because you got these legs just going up here. Doesn't mean those other girls are not doing anything. They can do something else. They could be doing claps. They could be out engaging the audience. They could be doing maybe they can do cartwheels. We would have them do cartwheels or something. They can turn. They can, they can do something while that kick line is happening. I always call that eye candy. When you have more stuff happening on the floor than just the one thing, what happens is when you repeat seeing a group over and over and over again, you start to learn their routine. When you do more things where there are other things happening at the same time, now you go, oh, I didn't realize that they were doing that. And you can see the next time, you go, oh, that's neat, I didn't see that. There's something new to see every time because there's so much going on. Some people don't like that. They think it gets kind of confusing looking. That's the good stuff because it shows a lot of energy happening, shows a lot of different things happening, gives everybody a little something else to look at so you don't get used to seeing a routine over and over. I do want to take this point in time where we're talking about pinwheels to illustrate and going back one step, because I wanted to talk about this when I was talking about pinwheels. To illustrate the difference in the choreography so that you understand how different it is to choreograph. When we do pinwheels, you're usually doing 16 counts per quarter, 64 counts for a full revolution, 128 counts to go around twice, right? You can't have a Funkenmariechen go 128 counts to turn around 2 times. Take a very, very long time, very, very boring. You can't even have her do turns for 128 counts. Because it'd be, okay, you can do that, what else can you do? So this illustrates the difference between the two types of choreography. But being able to do the choreography for the one and doing the choreography for the other, they help each other out. They give you a viewpoint of where to, how to teach. And that viewpoint is important, which is one of the other things I want to talk to you about, is perspective. Most choreographers make a big mistake. They choreograph from the dance floor, from the perspective of the dancer. That's not the important perspective. The audience is the important perspective. If you want to be a good choreographer, you have to step away from the dance floor. You have to step out into the audience and see what the audience is seeing. And you have to be critical. You have to look and say, okay, I had this idea. I want to see that this idea, and it may be in your mind's eye, seeing it from the dancer's point of view, you think, wow, this is going to be neat. But when you step out into the audience and you go, well, it doesn't look at all like what I thought it was going to look like. And unless you do that, you don't know that. You're thinking you're doing something great, and when you see it the first time somebody videotapes it, and you see it, and you're going, oh, that didn't turn out at all like what I thought it was. Boy, I'm kind of disappointed in that. So it's very important when you're doing choreography to think of the audience perspective and not the dancers. The dancer isn't important in this, believe it or not. The dancer is the least important part of any performance. The audience is always the most important. Who's the dancer dancing for? Even the Funkenmariechen. I'm sorry, if there's no audience, there's no performance. Granted, if there's no Funkenmariechen, there's nothing for the audience to watch. But she's supposed to be dancing for the audience. The Tanzpaar dances for the audience. The Garde dances for the audience. The audience is the most important part of any performance. They're important to us as dancers. Our club, I'm very pleased of our Alvarad. They always are out there calling out, hoi, hoi. When the girls are kicking, they respond by letting us know, yeah, we like what you're doing. That's always important. So when you see them do something, yeah, let them know that they're doing something good. But when you're choreographing, you have to think of that audience perspective. What do they see? That goes back with what I was talking about with the Funkenmariechen. What do the audience see? Do they see a finished, professional-looking performer, or do they see an amateur who didn't quite get their costume right? Hair. How does the hair look? How does the makeup look? Thank you so much. This man with a beautiful mustache gives me a beautiful smile. Yes. When they practice, I don't know how many times I have to say this. I watch girls who start, and we're doing our kick line, and here they are. And I say, the audience doesn't want to see your hat. They want to see your face. And if you practice it like this, you will perform it like that. If you, and that's a big one. Every rehearsal should be rehearsed as if you are performing. It's called muscle memory. If you don't practice smiling, you will not smile. You're going to forget to smile. If you don't practice keeping your head up and looking at the audience, I'm in the audience, I'm on the stage, I don't care where I am in the garden. If I see someone and I catch eye contact with someone, I'll smile at them. I'll nod at them. I've engaged that person. Even in the middle of a garda, I will engage that person. That person is going to think, ooh, me. You know, they're going to feel good. And if I can do that with someone else and someone else, that's where your standout dancers happen, by the way. They are doing that, and you can't help but do it. I'm sorry. It's natural for me. If I'm going to catch someone's face, I'll smile at them, and you'll know I just smiled at you in particular because you were smiling at me. And you were showing you appreciated what I was doing, even if I'm in the line. And you're going to remember that, and so do I. And it's going to make that performance a little bit more special to each of us. And it can happen from a garda to engage the audience. And they need to be. Yes.
I have one problem with the kicking.
Yes.
I hate to see those girls when they kick their heels
Oh,
and do their feet like that. They're
Just-
supposed to be stretched out.
You are right.
Just to be
One of the issues that we have now with dancing, and I was pointing this out to somebody else, if you go, again, YouTube, we talk about it, hear the remarks from Germany. They nail us for wearing these boots, by the way.
Yes.
These are considered parade boots only. They are for parade only. The girls in Europe, they all wear little jazz boots.
Exactly.
Like I used to. And guess what? These boots are very hard to point. You cannot, you really,
Cannot point.
I have trouble pointing them.
Tradition.
Because they look cute, but they're heavy as well. It makes it a lot harder. You feel them after you start kicking. You feel them. Those little jazz boots, so easy to point your toe. They're light. You don't even feel them. The toe points. You are right. It is. It is hard to get them to understand that they need to point that toe. But see, look at me. That's me pointing. And if I get up high, now you're going to see the heel. All right. Well, when I kick my leg up there, you're going to see the heel almost. So it is, when you make that choice to go with what looks this cute traditional booties or a jazz shoe, I've always, over and over and over, will say, when you're dancing, wear the correct equipment. The correct equipment is a shoe that is made for a dancer. It needs to be flexible, it needs to be soft, it needs to be form-fitted to the foot. You need to have the right shoe that fits you so that you don't slip slide in it. A heel like this, very easy, and you got a hurt dancer. You wear them. They're nice, but it's something to think about, and especially if you're getting into an older group of ladies, I would get really tempted if I saw older ladies wearing boots like
We're
this.
wearing character shoes.
Depending on what you're doing, you have a low heel. Yeah, and it's not a narrow heel. It's the, I know what you're talking about. As long as you're not doing anything that is really kicking up high and doing heavy jumping, where if you're jumping like this, okay, it's here where your problem is. When you come down and you land on one heel, and if you see the floor here, you can see the lines. It takes to catch the heel in this, and you got a dancer on the ground. When we wore, the go-go boots, it was even worse. Because they were the plastic heels were so easy to catch. This is a neat floor for a dancer because it's soft. We used to dance on these floors that were pushed together, that were wood, and they would have gaps. I don't know how many times, I'd say every year we had a dancer go on the butt. Every year. Doing a kick, the foot would come off from underneath them, but they'd take a step and down. So it is part of, goes in, you make a decision. Do you want to have a nice, want to wear the cute little boot? Do you want to wear a shoe that's appropriate? And then you can put your top. So it is kind of a give and take, very good. Let me see here. Anybody have any questions? I do want to deal, I want to be able to answer if you have particular problems within your group, or not problems, but issues that you would like to ask about. I want to be able to deal with those. The last thing I kind of want to talk about is skits. Skits are fun. Our group, we have again, I'm going to say probably one of the best Elverats, because our Elverat, I say, hey, I got an idea. Okay, let's go. They come to rehearsal. They listen. Their ears are open. Their mouths are shut. Listen, look at them. They don't mind if I make fools of them. And they're just so open to everything. And this is what you want. Remember the skit. I'll go back one step. The Elverat is the host of the carnival party. It is the Elverat that puts it on. It is their skit. Okay. Sometimes our Elverat can't come up with an idea. Maybe they don't even want to go on stage. Maybe they're. It's not the best thing. It is their area. The girls are the dance. The Elverat is the skit. I like skits that incorporate Prinzengarde and the Elverat because sex.
It's fun too.
It's fun. But you can use that as kind of what you're doing. You can get a little on the the little playful side. Our Elvarat, I dressed them up as women more time than anything else. Dieter Kurtz is more comfortable in women's lingerie than any person I've ever met. More comfortable than I am. I wouldn't go on the dance floor wearing those outfits he's worn. He will, and it's wonderful. This is what we want. But therefore, it's also nice to have the girls. The way I look at skits is this. The girls are the straight man, and the Elvarat's the joke. We're the setup, they're the punchline. Okay? So the girls come out and they do everything right. The boys come out and screw it up. But that's the funny part. Remember, it's supposed to be funny. All right? So a couple years back, we did a really neat one. We did I Enjoy Being a Girl. And I dressed the guys up in the women's lingerie. And what was so neat is we had the girls come out first. The girls came out and we're doing the whole thing in front. And as we're dancing in front, the guys are sneaking in the back. And then when we moved out, there were the guys, they lifted off they were all covered in sheets, and their sheets came off, and there they were in their lingerie. And I mean, the laughter that happened before they even moved, that they're sitting back there. And then when I have a brand new hairdo, the laughter never stopped throughout this entire program. It was just amazing. The guys did great. You can't hold back on that. If you're going to do this, then you got to do it. Wendell, our president this year, he had these little blonde braids, and he was playing with this, tiptoeing around with these little blonde braids. We had, I'm trying to remember, Fred. He had long blonde hair. Dieter Kurtz was wearing red bra, a red lace bra, red lacy underwear. He had white with hearts, white stockings with red hearts on them, and I mean, tiptoeing around and doing that. You put it all out. You cannot hold anything back. If you hold back, you're letting the audience know I'm not comfortable up here. You got to be comfortable with it. But this seems to work well. Is the girls and the boys, and as much as it's fun that girls want to be funny, we're just not as funny as the guys. We just aren't as funny as the guys. So again, remember when we were talking about strengths and weaknesses? Girls are good for going out and saying, okay, here's how you do a can-can. We're going to really do a good can-can. Then the guys come up and try and do it. Now you have a comparison. And now you go, oh, God, aren't they bad? Yeah. And that's when you start laughing, is because you see there are the girls doing these great can-can kicks, and here are the guys doing it funny, you know. A lot of uncomfortable things. One of the things we did with that can-can last year is we had the girls holding onto the guy's legs. We did this when we were doing this, right? Now a girl can do this. Can a guy? No. He can't hold his leg up there. I don't care what he's holding. But we were holding it and we're like this going, you know, it really looked like we were struggling to hold the guy's legs up, but the guys were trying to do what we were doing. It's funny. That's where your comedy comes from. Look back at old movies. You guys saw us do last night? Came out of an old movie. We're doing this looking, right? And back to back, this is old silent movie time, walking around each other where we don't see each other until, there you are. This is all old movie stuff, old slapstick stuff. It works. Having a guy walking across the floor and on the face in the pie works. That's where it all comes from. Look at the past for this. Old vaudeville comedy, that's what this is. Old vaudeville comedy. That's what you want in a skit. More people engaged, girls and guys together. There's always a mix-up there. Costuming, very important. Those horses we were wearing last night, the ones with the little pogo ponies were cute, but those of us wearing horses were even funnier. The minute you saw us with those little kitty horses on, we were funny before we even moved, right? The costume, really important. Use your imagination. Go out, but whatever you do, go out to all the way out. Don't hold back. Okay, I think I've kind of touched on a lot, but I do want to answer questions. You're talking about you have a group of 7 ladies.
7 days.
And you're trying to get started with.
For next year, this year we have already our days. But for next year, I do need a lot of help.
Okay, is there something? Do you have something in mind?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, maybe we should talk. Okay? I'm always willing to try and help anybody out. I think the more that we do this, the more that we share with each other. I said last year the same thing. I'd like to see somebody else up here some other time doing and giving their points of view. I'd like to see roundtable discussions. This is where we move forward. We have to remember this. This is what I'm going to leave you with. We cannot move backward. That's done and gone. We want this to continue to survive, and it's moving forward. Nothing continues to strive if it is choked to death. We don't want to choke it to death with tradition. We want it to evolve, and we want every generation to allow to add to it their part, because this is what's going to make it good. We hold on to the tradition in the fact that we continue to do it every year. We honor the tradition by allowing the next generation to add their parts to it. That means that garter dance should not just remain. It can't, because after a while that's not interesting to watch. It's right. We need to add them. Okay? That adds a lot more flavor to it. To what extent, how fast it progresses, everybody's going to have to do. But please, please, one thing I beg of everybody is to please allow it to grow and become, share with each other what you know and what you've done. And be honored when somebody steals from you, because it meant you did something good and somebody likes it. And maybe they change it, but they do something that they honor. So, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer. If you want to come and ask me something individually, I'm happy to answer. Corner, thank you. For everybody today, I talked a lot.
14 years I've been coming to GAMGA. I have never seen anyone who's got more energy out on this dance floor than this lady right here. She's super. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll tell you what, we'll see more of her from time to time. We gotta have more.